Well, I will usually say happy Friday, but apparently it's a happy Tuesday today. So yeah, there's been lots going on, and I felt this week maybe there's too much going on that it doesn't deserve at least one or two videos this week. So we'll see. So happy Tuesday to you. We're going to actually cover something quite topical today. Let's see some topical subjects with a particular geospatial focus. So what can 𝐓𝐻𝐵, Theranos and LEGO failure teach us? Let's get topical. So I just wanted to start with talking about what is Geospatial 2.0. It extends and reinvents our world. I think that's really at the heart of what we're talking about here. So there's startups appearing that are in the space. There's existing organizations that are growing and extending, but things are changing. We're in a state of flux. Let's talk about 𝐓𝐻𝐵. 𝐓𝐻𝐵 were a streaming service. They had investments nearly $2 billion, and they shut down after 6 months. Now, Meg Whitman, famous for eBay, HP, she's had a pretty checkered history, if I was being honest, if you cut through the propaganda. She was behind this, and she basically took a perspective with her founder, who's actually in Hollywood or in the film industry. If we build it, they will come. Well, as I've said there, no. If we build it, they won't come. And there's some really interesting videos on why they failed. And business 101. They didn't understand the competition. They didn't understand the business. They made a guess at what customers wanted. They didn't actually know what customers wanted. And they failed with so much money poured into them. There's a lesson to many of those in the geospatial startup space. Theranos is, I can't stop watching this Theranos stuff. I watched a video a long time ago, the documentary from HBO, about their rise to fame and epic collapse. Elizabeth Holmes was the founder. I've got there, fake it until you make it or you get found out. I've seen, I mean, in Theranos's case, allegedly it was fraud. And the trial's going on right now, which is a fascinating trial, but she had investment, the company worth $10 billion at one point, Theranos, and they had nothing. There's a danger, and I see it in a geospatial world, where people promise everything and they can't necessarily deliver on that. So there's two lessons learned, but I think really the focus of what I'm going to talk about here is LEGO. So I mentioned in a previous Friday talk about LEGO. LEGO had 3 phases. They had a first phase where they were super successful, where they introduced a plastic block, building block. They had a very unsuccessful middle period where in the 90s they realized that digital was affecting their marketplace and they tried to reinvent themselves, and they've had a very successful third phase. So how did they enter that very successful third phase? They were very close to bankruptcy at one point in the early 2000s. Well, they went back to their core. They found out what had to profit from the core, and there's a book called that. They recognized that the core of their business was a brick. That was the basics of everything that they did. And on top of that was this endless building experience that they talk about. So they began to create, their target market they knew very well, 7 to 9-year-old boys, and actually latterly adults as well. But they had this building experience that could morph into different things. You could build houses, dinosaurs, anything from the starting point, which was the brick. So the turnaround of LEGO, if you've never read about it, is absolutely astounding. Why am I talking about that here? Well, do we know what's at our core? As a geospatial industry, do we know what's at our core? Many would still argue that at the core of geospatial is the map. And I've harped on about this before. And that's how I feel about it. It's not that I feel about it. That's actually correct. It doesn't start and it isn't the core. The map is not. So what is at the core? So I've got a date range there from 1969, which was around the time that GIS appeared, to around about 2018. These are really somewhat arbitrary dates. The core of geospatial was really the two-dimensional geodatabase. That was the core. That was what everything else came from. Now, during that period, we were really singly focused on our output as a map. So if you take the early days of LEGO, there was very much kids buy Lego blocks and they build what they want from these Lego blocks. Use your imagination, be creative. So sort of a single output in Lego's world, single output in our world as well, the map. And we really had a single technology, a single platform really that fit in there, and that was GIS. So that was sort of our core. 2D geospatial data was the core for that period of time. So from 2018, again, somewhat arbitrary dates, but recently, what's the core now? Well, that core's changed. We're now talking about multidimensional geospatial data. So not just two-dimensional data, we're talking about three-dimensional data and four-dimensional data. We're actually merging in with other disciplines as well. Those that have been just focused on 3D, those that have just been focused on 4D, the IoT world, we're all coming together. So experts are sort of coalescing, if you like. So again, if we talk that multidimensional data is our block in the Lego sense, this endless outputs is also a notion that we need to start embracing. That is two-dimensional flat maps that we're used to seeing from GIS, for example. That's three-dimensional worlds, this digital twin, digital reality, and then it's four dimensions, it's real-time data as well. So we're beginning to actually think about in terms of how Lego have approached things. We understand our core, we understand that we have to provide endless outputs, and we now have a multitude of platforms and services that are providing those capabilities. So we're not just based around GIS anymore. GIS is one part of a much bigger whole. So the world of geospatial has changed dramatically, and we're still in the process of that. And we've got existing companies that are growing to expand into this new marketplace, this new demand for geospatial. And we've got startups that are trying to navigate the space, get into marketplaces that GIS and other geospatial technologies have never got into. So we live in really interesting times. But I will always say that we need to make sure that we always, like just exactly the same as Lego, stay focused on the core. And it's really that multidimensional data that starts our journey. So that's me, that's my email address. As ever, shout me down, pat me on the back, do whatever you want. But I'd love your input, your feedback on some of these things that I'm talking about. And there'll be another, I think there'll be another video coming tomorrow. So I'll talk to you then. Cheerio.